DJ Lagway is the reason to go out and watch Baylor football in 2026.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of the Rogue Media Sports Network. I appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. And shout out to you newbies as well as your everydayers. We are talking DJ Lagway again today, but looking at it from the dry blanket side of things. How does DJ Lagway elevate this team, and why does one expert say he's actually the reason that there will be more butts in the seats in McLane Stadium in 2026? And is DJ starting to do what we thought he was going to do? Not just sign, but bring more talent with him. Certainly, it is pointing in that direction. And Scott Drew's next big star. Is there already something being mixed up in there with Dylan Mingo? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start, and that is with DJ Lagway, who we've talked about ad nauseum at this point in the month of January. But obviously, it's a huge deal for Baylor. And Sunday afternoon brought big-time, massive news that Lagway actually has signed and will be the starting quarterback for the Baylor Bears in 2026. Now, on yesterday's show, I talked at length about, was there too much drama? Was there too much of a saga? Is that already, kind of hurting morale more than helping morale before we even get the guy in to help morale? Some of you didn't like that. Some of you didn't like me bringing up that question. I think it's a reasonable, fair question after, the fact that you track any of the other quarterbacks who were highly touted in the transfer portal. None of them did the thing where they committed to a school and then continued to go on visits. It's just not a normal thing, but all's well that ends well. DJ is your quarterback. And as I did say on the show yesterday, that is a good thing for Baylor. That is a very positive thing for Baylor. Just last month, we were talking about what player do you market this team around? Because the fans sure as heck are not coming for the coach, right? There are some Baylor fans, the great Baylor fans, who will go no matter who is in the uniform, no matter who is on the headset, they are going to see the B and the U on the helmet. But for the rest of those Baylor fans, of which there are plenty who are discouraged and don't want to go, I understand your pain. Those fans aren't going for the coach. So you got to get some players that they would want to go there and see. DJ Lagway is someone that they will want to go there to see. In fact, Tim Brando, the great Tim Brando, went on the Pete Souza show on Monday and talked about this just for a bit, talked about DJ Lagway. And what he said was, DJ, first, is a coach saver, could save a job. I will say, that's kind of how he was seen for Billy Napier at Florida. And as I've said before, we can tout him, as I will, because I think he's a good quarterback. I think it's unfair to kind of pin everything that Dave Aranda has done before this and kind of have DJ Lagway as the foundation holding it up in 2026. But what Tim Brando also said was he's a guy who's going to put butts in the seats. He said it's a fan base that should draw better. It's a program that should draw better. And he's absolutely right about that. And DJ Lagway is someone who can get people's attention. He can. And you guys are going to laugh at this example, but it's kind of true. The last time we had someone saying that about a quarterback on this channel was when Pete Souza himself said that DeQuan Finn was going to bring people into the seats. And I know what he was talking about there. Like DeQuan Finn had that kind of excitement to him, and it obviously did not pan out really at all. Game 2, he was down and out. They looked really bad. And they had to go to Sawyer Robertson, who definitely put some butts in the seats. But DJ Lagway brings that excitement. And that's kind of step one for Baylor, right? Like, he's not going to come in and make them win 10 games, but he can make them more exciting and give you some name recognition and give you a narrative, a storyline. And that helps Baylor fandom. That does. But obviously, as I know some of you are already screaming at your phones and your computers already about this, obviously what we all want is more wins, right? Could give a fecal matter less about narratives and storylines and legacies and QB swag and what number he wears and all that. We don't care if they don't win. And here's where DJ Lagway does help you out again, is he raises your floor. I know he's coming off a kind of a down year statistically at Florida, and Florida is coming off a bad year, much like Baylor is. But before Lagway committed, we were having this discussion of who the best player was. And I think honestly, all of us were thinking and looking at Baylor as if we were being honest with ourselves, a 3-9, 2-10 kind of team before the portal. It didn't inspire much confidence. You had a legacy roster this year, culmination roster this past year, and those guys are gone. All your contributors, for the most part, or I guess all for the most part doesn't count. For all intents and purposes, your contributors are gone. You returned very little production on either side of the ball, offense or defense. And so you're looking at a 2-10, 3-9 team. Clip this if you must, and troll me in 11 months if you must. But I don't think this is a 2-10, 3-9 team with DJ Lagway at quarterback. I really doubt that. I don't know if it's a bowl team, which gives you a couple of wins in between there to work with. But I think they're much closer to having a winning season with DJ Lagway, much closer than they were without him. And I look at the teams that finished behind Baylor in the Big 12 last year and look at what that comparison is, because these are the teams that finished 3-9, 4-8. Like, okay, is DJ Lagway better than Taven Jackson? Yes, he is. Is DJ Lagway better than Scotty Fox Jr. or Nico Marchiol? Yes, he is. Is DJ Lagway better than Caden Salter? Yes, he is. Although Caden's a nice runner and did have a better QBR. But DJ Lagway is a better quarterback. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. Is DJ Lagway better than Zane Flores? Again, yes, he is. So you're saying, oh, Cam, so that means they're not going to be in the basement because they have DJ Lagway. And that is essentially what I'm saying, because that was our fear a few weeks ago, that this would be a repeat of 2023. And we'd really be wondering where this program's going, because we're wondering it right now. Lagway is better than those guys. And so to me, yes, he raises your floor. I know Spencer McLaughlin was skeptical of that when I went on Locked On College Football a couple weeks ago, but I'm sticking by that. He raises your floor, and that is the start for Baylor. Raises your floor and gets some fan interest. That's chipping away. I'd rather Dave Aranda be doing that in year 3 than year 7, but we can't change that. We cannot change that. There's probably another way that DJ is raising the floor of this team as well, as main recruiter next to Keenan Hall and Dallas Baker and Aaron Hunt. We'll tell you how he's getting that done next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. I had to drink some tea this morning, which I never do, but I had to do it because of Game Time. Why is that, you ask? Because I was in Foxborough on Sunday afternoon to see the Patriots take apart this vaunted Houston Texans defense, and I lost my voice doing it. So Game Time was the one that got me there. Therefore, they were the ones who made me have the T. And you guys know NFL, college football, especially as we talk about every day on this show, you don't want to be missing out on that. You don't want FOMO. Watching on TV is awesome, but it's not like being there. Game Time lets you get there, and it gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and so much more in just a few taps. I open the Game Time app. I look at the games in my area, college football, specifically college basketball at this point in the season, and it's stupid how fast I can find great seats. And they make it so easy. I can see the view from my seat. I got zone deals that are sticking out. I don't have any of the surprise fees. I got it all up front. That's taking the stress out of buying tickets like we used to have. It's also taking the guesswork out of it. Do that with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Do it today. So I expect DJ Lagway to raise Baylor's floor, as I talked about in the last segment. But is he already doing that? Like outside of just him? Because as I mentioned kind of when he first committed, long before he signed, obviously, was that you get the benefits with this portal quarterback that you do when you get a big-time quarterback recruit out of high school. And everyone says, around college football, the most valuable thing you can have is a blue-chip quarterback prospect in your recruiting class, because that has a trickle-down effect or a domino effect, whichever way you want to go with it, that more talent will come along in that class because they see a leader at the quarterback position. And we had heard the rumors, RG3 was talking about it, that DJ was recruiting players as he was going to visit Ole Miss. And apparently that is true, because the day before DJ committed, there was DeBron Hampton, a wide receiver from Florida and Willis High School. Wow. Isn't that novel? Isn't that interesting? A guy who's a two-time teammate of DJ Lagway. And then on Monday, hours after, barely 24 hours after DJ Lagway committed, you filled a pretty big tight end need. No Michael Trigg anymore. Matthew Klopfenstein trying to step up, but you still need some depth at that position. How about Tony Livingston? A guy from the University of Florida. 6'5", 260. That's a big fella. That is a big fella at tight end. And look, are his numbers crazy? No. In fact, they're very symmetrical, I would say, in 2024 and 2025. Both seasons, he had 11 catches each. 1 year he had 109 yards, the other had 119, so both about 10 yards per. And each season he had 2 touchdowns. So is it jumping off the page, eye-grabbing? No. But do you like him and Matthew Klopfenstein, a guy who I've been high on since he's gotten here, battling for a tight end spot? Yeah, I do. I do like that, as a matter of fact. I think that's a good battle to have. And they could both see some time, because you lost Michael Trigg and you lost Kelsey Johnson as well. Kelsey went in the transfer portal. Actually, I don't know where he ended up. But this whole Baylor-Florida thing, just they're trading with each other, right? DK Kalu and DJ Coleman, Florida. Samu was going to Florida. They actually flipped to Colorado. And in return, Baylor gets Tony Livingston, DeBron Hampton, and DJ Lagway. Baylor could have won that trade if Lagway plays up to his potential in his 2 years of eligibility. We'll see if they're both at Baylor, right? But in his 2 years, if he lives up to that, then definitely Baylor has won the trade. But already you're starting to see guys come here that probably wouldn't have come here if DJ Lagway had not signed and just kept this thing going, kept out this saga and maybe gone somewhere else. Tony Livingston might be at Duke or Ole Miss. And looking even beyond just the Florida teammates. The guys I mentioned last week with Hardly Gilmore and Draylon Miller, two receivers, Gilmore from Kentucky and Miller from Colorado, a guy who, by the way, Colorado people are speaking very highly of Draylon Miller. I saw that in some of the write-ups when he entered the portal. I saw that in some of the comment sections, so fans and also media, they said, this kid's a real player. Hope he can get utilized the way that he needs to be utilized, kind of thing. Like I said it last week, but those guys aren't coming here for Nate Bennett and Edward Griffin. Again, no offense to those guys. I think they have a role in this team. I think Edward Griffin's time is coming. I think Quinn Murphy's time is coming. But you're coming to Baylor in this situation, which doesn't feel great. You're coming here for DJ Lagway throwing you the ball, not, Edward Griffin throwing you the ball. Not yet. And I think that's already a pull. In European soccer, they talk about the calls that hit different, what managers call, and you have to pick up the phone. Maybe that's DJ Lagway in this transfer portal recruiting cycle. When DJ calls, man, you've got to pick up the phone. That call is different. And so you're starting to see that. But this will be a patchwork kind of offense. Any of those three guys we were just talking about, Livingston, Gilmore, and Draylon Miller, can start right away. That wouldn't surprise me at all. You really got thin at your receiver position and your tight end position. Those guys could all come in and be starters for Baylor week 1 when they take the field against Auburn in Atlanta. Gosh, that's going to be an interesting game, by the way. I mean, DeBron Hampton probably cannot. He's played 2 games at Florida. That's probably a depth guy that you're trying to develop a little bit, right? But these other 3 guys, that's 3 guys who are probably coming here for DJ Lagway. One almost certainly in Livingston, his teammate at Florida. And they're all guys who could be in your starting lineup. You can't manufacture chemistry, but at least there is a connection there off the field, if nothing else. Hopefully goals-wise, there's a bit of a connection there as well. But you got to get these kids on campus. We got classes starting today, and it's got to start clicking in fall camp, or excuse me, in spring ball. Spring ball. You don't have to have it down perfect, but I'm saying let's see if these guys have a connection in spring ball and what that looks like for this Baylor offense, which even as a good unit this last year needs a lot of retooling, a lot of it. And I know the other hand of the positivity that I'm putting out, with DJ bringing in new talent and raising Baylor's floor, I know that there's a pretty obvious other hand of saying, well, you had a pretty good defense whoa. Check that. Let's make this clean. You had a pretty good offense last year. You had a dang good quarterback. You had a dang good number 1 receiver. You had a dang good tight end. You had a dang good running back 1. And it got you to 5 dang wins. Not even 6. Not even a bowl game. And I understand. You need the quarterback. You need more receivers in here. But I understand that a lot of you guys are thinking about the defensive side of the ball. That's something we're going to take even more looks at this week. Because I like the guys that Klanderman brought in from Kansas State. Talked about that last week. But interested to kind of look through this and see who can actually be a starter right away. How many of these guys in the portal are you confident in being starters right away? And it's probably a majority of them so far that could be guys who make an impact sooner rather than later. And whether that's a good thing, bad thing, or otherwise, it's up to you guys, I guess. But let me know what you think in the comment section below about DJ Lagway bringing in some more talent here. When we come back, let's talk about basketball and keep on the recruiting trail, because there's another 5-star who could be on his way to Baylor, but already there might be some pushback and some drama going on. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. Scott Drew is going to have to sweat one out. It's Dylan Mingo, the 5-star guard from Lehigh. Might remember, VJ Edgecombe's alma mater. He is picking between Baylor and North Carolina mainly. Penn State and Washington are still in there. That decision was supposed to be Thursday. That was the 22nd. And he has now told a couple of different sites, Dylan Mingo told them, that that's going to be pushed back a bit. What's a bit? I don't know. But what I do know is this kid's a freaking stud. Like, big time. Top 5 recruit in high school basketball in the United States of America right now. Dylan Mingo, 5-star combo guard, going to do a lot of his scoring inside the arc. Not a terrific 3-point shooter by any means, but still a good offensive game. More of a scorer, I guess, than a creator. Can be disruptive on the defensive end. That's what the scouting report says. And he's big and long. He's 6'5" with a 6'10" wingspan. So he's actually an elite rebounder at the guard position. He's going over 7 boards a game as a guard. And you know what? Watching his tape and hearing all these scouting reports, the name he reminds me of is Trey Johnson. Remember Trey Johnson? He was supposed to go to Baylor. Remember, I think his dad played at Baylor or his uncle played at Baylor. One of them played. I think it was his dad played at Baylor. I think I'm thinking of Liam McNeely's uncle played at Baylor, and he was kind of looking to circle back after he decommitted from Indiana, trying to circle back to Scott Drew, and Scott was like, I don't have much room. And so he went to UConn instead, another stud freshman. That was the year they had a couple of them here at Baylor. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Reminds me of Trey Johnson, who ended up going to UT, unfortunately, to play for Rodney Terry. Who wouldn't want to play for RT at UT? But similar game. He wasn't much of a 3-point shooter, kind of had that long wingspan, and was a guy who could get to his spots and, score at a high level without necessarily being a high volume, efficient 3-point shooter. And it comes down to basically Baylor and North Carolina. And still, if you had asked me a couple years ago, like, is Baylor going to be battling for 5 stars with UNC? Like, I would think that you were crazy, right? But here they are. And honestly, if you're a kid who's a top prospect right now, a 5-star guy, and your ultimate goal is not just 1 year of college basketball, but your ultimate goal is playing in the NBA and being developed into the NBA and becoming potentially an all-star in the NBA, at this point, you have better luck doing that at Baylor than you do at the University of North Carolina. And that's not a joke. That's not something to get the people going. It's not provocative. That's true. Baylor has lottery picks every year at this point. They've got more guys in the NBA than almost any school in America. And the reality is, the North Carolina Tar Heels have not had an NBA All-Star in almost 20 years. Vince Carter was the last guy they sent to the All-Star game. They haven't had a top 5 pick at UNC in 20 years. That's crazy. Baylor had one last year. And oh, by the way, it just so happens to be a guy who went to the same high school as Dylan Mingo's going to right now. That's nuts. By the way, Colby White's having a good year with the Bulls, so maybe he's up there as an all-star for UNC. But it's shocking, man. It's been a long time since Carolina has put a guy in the all-star game or put a guy in the top 5 of the NBA draft. And really, like, the last time you look at a guy that Carolina actually recruited, developed, and was picked in the first round, it was Justin Jackson. That was 2017, man. Like, Baylor is much better in the 2020s at identifying talent and developing talent to get drafted in the first round and in the lottery than North Carolina is. It's still crazy to think about, but it's true. VJ Edgecombe, Eve Meese, Jacoby Walter, Davion Mitchell. You can just go up and down the list. Jeremy Sohan was a top 10 pick. Carolina's not doing that. Baylor is. So Dylan Mingo, you're going to probably play one season of college basketball because that's how it works. That's fine. But you want to be an NBA player being picked in the top 20. The choice is actually pretty clear because sure as heck, Penn State and Washington aren't doing much of that. Has Penn State ever done that? I'm not looking it up right now, but I don't know if Penn State's ever had a guy picked in the lottery. NBA All-Star, I doubt it. Washington, you did have a number 1 pick. Remember, we all remember Markelle Fultz. But if you want to be a lottery pick and be developed as an NBA player, the choice is actually pretty clear. You should go to Baylor, not North Carolina. Seems pretty obvious. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We come at you every day on YouTube, dropping in the mornings, and wherever you get your podcasts as well. I appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you on the next one, the next edition of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.